emergency and open up some funding. Do you know any leads on that?
No, I don't. I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, you mentioned talk about making this a 7-month port. Talking with John Driscoll, he mentioned a 9-month port. That bothers me. I've lived here for most of my life, and we never had that attitude around before. It was a year-round port, as far as I know. I mean, as far as the public was concerned, and that whole attitude of people that are responsible for getting these things done, be it the Harbor District or at the conference level, their attitude that really bothers me.
I didn't mention a 9-month or 7-month port. I'm not speaking for Jack. I don't know if he has or has not, but I never pushed for anything like that.
Well, I heard somebody mention it here today. Some people were talking about a 7-month port, and talking with John Driscoll, meeting with him, several different issues, but this he was referred to, well, we're going to start thinking about this as a 9-month port. And of course, it's something that's our point then after taking money.
And pardon me, I have a couple of questions here. First, we talk about sediment coming from the eel. Has there actually been any sampling to show that that's the sediment that's showing up here?
Yes, I'm not sure what year it was. It was the early 2000s. There was a drifter study done. I don't know if you've heard about the drifters, but they were put down off the Eel River somewhere, and they're like little 4-inch umbrellas, and they're made of plastic, and they had identifying marks on them, and they put them in the surf, or I'm not sure exactly where they launched them, but all of these drifters were picked up along the beach. And every one of them except one went to the north. And I'm not sure the number. I've been looking for this study. I was actually talking to Peter Moe at the Corps of Engineers, and they were trying to find the study that was done. But all of these drifters during this time of year went to the north. Even some of them went past the harbor and it ended up towards McKinleyville. But this time of year, that's where our sand comes. So I'm positive of that.
Okay, now, so here's the second part of the question. If this is a continuing problem, perhaps rather than an accelerated dredging program, what we need are structural changes like widening the mouth of the harbor or a jetty on the north side of the Eel River to take that stuff farther offshore.
I'm sure that's going to be part of the study. And another one was right at the end of the jetties, the channel makes a turn towards the west. And there's also been talk of extending the south jetty in the same direction as the channel. And if they could go out into deeper water, all these jetties do is buy you time. That's when they originally built these jetties in the early 1900s. They were just buying time, and our time is run out basically. And the pot, the glass was empty, then it was half full, now it is full. So an extension of the south jetty would just buy us more time. But it would definitely help keep this port open year-round, the way I see it.
So I believe Mr. Kreider, when he was talking about a 7-month port, I believe what he meant was that the reality of it is that people can't get in and out. Not that we wanted to call it or make it a 7-month port. I hope that the studies will do particle size distribution to see where the actual sediment is coming from. It seems that a lot of it is coming from the Eel, but we also have some really muddy rivers pouring into Humboldt Bay, Freshwater Creek, Elk River, and that has to go somewhere. artificial reefs are well engineered already. A lot is known about building artificial reefs to deflect waves and sand. So perhaps that's something that we need to look into.
I had a question regarding the rise of the ocean. I hear that the northern part of California, it's the rise of the seas. You know, what effect does that have on our harbor? I mean, when you're talking about the ocean rising and we got these waters, I mean, we live where all the rivers are going after the ocean. It's kind of like a push against push, and the sediment would seem like it would stop in a certain area. And I hear that, you know, I was just listening to the meeting I was at yesterday, they were saying that Northern California was sinking faster, get it right. Now it's sinking, you know, I mean, that's sea is rising more on the north coast than it was elsewhere.
I've heard the same thing. I'm not a scientist, but I have heard that we are sinking faster than the ocean is rising. So that's actually a good point.
I wanted to say something about the 7-month port. If it's going to be a 7-month port, it might as well be a 0-month port, because right now it's tough enough to do business in California as it being considered a 12-month port. So you cut it back to 7 months, and it's just not viable to conduct business on this port.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you, Brian. And I think one thing, what we need to do is try to get the dredging moved up and try to get the Bayport in here instead of the core. I mean, if the core can do it, great. But the Bayport, I see them as more efficient. And if they could be here earlier, I think we'd be better off.
I think it's important to realize, my point of view is from commercial fishing, but it's important to realize that there's a trickle-down effect from the shipping industry that affects us. And if the port isn't have infrastructure for shipping, then we're not going to be prioritized to be dredged, and then it trickles down to everybody. So there seems to be movements against developing this port, or even having it come back to a level like it was 10 years ago. But the effect of all that is affects everybody, and even those in opposition, I don't know if they realize that, you know, they like to sport fish too, and we're not going to be prioritized if we don't take care of the shipping industry, because that's commerce, and that's where the priority goes.
I say amen to that. But so when we went out to watch the Bayport working, I guess it was last year, and because the Essence was dead in the water somewhere, I think it was the colonel said, was he with us on the boat? Yeah. Army Corps colonel said that the Bayport was much more efficient, cheaper to operate than their other ship. So than what the Army Corps has. So it just seems like maybe somebody should be looking at economies that, you know, why bother with the Essence if it's not efficient, if it's, you know, it's too big, it can't come in, all that. And I say amen to what you said about shipping, that unless we, our group, and we're looking to see if we could do any kind of a pilot project to get trucks from the valley coming over here that want to ship out. But if we can't guarantee any kind of shipping schedule, then that's not going to work either. So even though we're trying really hard to see if there's some way to make the port more viable as far as increasing shipping, so that then we're going to be on the list to get the dredging, because that's what John Driscoll said. Oh, you know, it's not much shipping going on here. You know, we're low priority. So that's not good for us. I mean, we are going to become a lagoon. There will be no sport fishing because it'll be too dangerous and hazardous. And then what do we have left? So I want us to have everybody have a vision that we can increase shipping one way or the other.
One more question, Karen?
And as critical as it is to get the entrance shoaling done, our inner reaches and our dock owners need to get dredged. And so what's the timetable on the harbor's dredge? Is it about ready to start working?
It's ready, 100%.
So you're waiting for the coastal commission to give you the permit for the channel?
We're working on one project. The first project is the King Salmon Channel, and we had meetings as recently as yesterday and this morning on that. And again, looking for the craziness that is, it's called mitigation for the eelgrass that we're removing. I mean, it's asinine. I mean, I don't know what to say without getting in trouble, but it's nuts. It's just crazy.
It's asinine works.
You know, we're looking at $500,000 in eelgrass mitigation, and you know that's more than it's going to cost to dredge.
And it may be a situation for the MLPA, how we had an emerald group, we had a coordinated group of people who said, this is what our standard is going to be. It's not what the state says, it's what's actually happening on the ground in our community. And we may need to have a coordinated look at eelgrass because we're very unique. We are concerned, and we realize from time to time we might have to damage some eelgrass, but we know it grows.
More than 80% of the eelgrass on the west coast is in Humboldt Bay.
Yeah,
So it might take a citizens group like this to go to the Coastal Commission and say, look what you're doing to us.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't always hang the nail on PG&E just because they have the money, you know. The Harbor District's doing, believe it or not, all that they can do to get this project done. You know, we're fighting tooth and nail to find mitigation areas that, you know, won't break everybody. You know, it's crazy. I mean, I don't even know how to begin to explain. I didn't even want to learn about that kind of stuff, but all that we're going through learning about eelgrass mitigation right now, it's just the most asinine thing I've ever heard of.
It gets worse.
Pardon me?
Well, I've got,
It gets worse, Tim.
Gosh.
I've got three questions to kind of wrap up that kind of, or I've heard that really haven't been answered. Ryan, first question, then Tim, and then John question. Ryan, for you, could you explain a little bit more? It sounds like you lost some shipping coming in and the impact on you. And then Tim, I forgot what, if we have the continued maintenance system, if we would have had that for like the 5 years, would the impact been as significant this year? And then John, you were talking about the bay port. Do we actually have choices that we can make to do some improvement as far as more of a permanent type of solution? So if we can go through, Ryan, starting with you.
Okay, well, at the end of last year, we looked at starting to buy cargo for a vessel in the first quarter of 2016. Well, with the draft restriction, we put off our purchases until middle of February. So we started buying logs in the middle of February, and we chartered a vessel 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was due to be here May 15th, between May 15th and May 20th. And we will have an underdeck cargo ready, and then it goes from here because we can't load a full vessel to Coos Bay, and it gets a deck cargo there. So we put about 3 to 3.5 million feet on here, and it goes up there and gets another 2.5 to 2.7 million up there. And so now we have, that ship has rerouted to Coos Bay, so it's going to deplete Coos Bay's inventory, which will then put off our next vessel another month. And so we will have to, it'll be very expensive for us to have to find storage for the cargo, for one, and for two, we have to, it's about $120,000 difference for bringing in, doing a 2-port call every time. So if we can eliminate the 2-port call, all that's going to do is get more money back to the landowner, back to the sawmills, back to whoever's bringing the cargo through here, and which then is overall good for the economy.
My answer to that would be, I hope so. I would hope so. You know, that's I think what the purpose is to not only start a procedure to see what we can do to help manage this sediment, but also find the fix for it or the cure, even if it's not a full-fledged, this is going to stop it 100%, if it's a, this is going to slow it down enough where we don't have major draft restrictions until the dredge gets here, which, you know, would be beneficial for all. And so I would hope the study would lead to what is going to be the fix for the problem. So hopefully the answer would be yes.
And as far as the Bayport scheduling, I'm not sure what kind of flexibility, and I'd like to think that we might have some input on that with this shoal management group, because I'd love to see the Bayport here more than not. Because I've seen the Esseons, you know, the Corps, at anchor quite a few times because of weather days, and at the same time you see the same kind of weather and you see the Bayport out working. They are here to do a job, and they get their job done and then they're gone. Where there's time constraints and there's all kinds of things with the Corps. Okay.
I guess that's my question. Are we stuck with having to live with the Army Corps program, or do we have another choice to go someplace else?
Yeah, well, during this shoal management study, if this group gets put together, and we're that's definitely going to be one of the things that's addressed. And we're already set up for writing letters for next year.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the four of you being here. You've answered a lot of questions for me, and I'm sure for other people here too. Anything you want to just, Marion?
Can you talk about the idea that somewhere the Eel River Valley has got the same, you were talking about?
Yeah. Fish and Game says that when we're looking at eelgrass and stuff like that, the Eel River Valley has the same conditions as the bay. And they suggested a number of years ago that we look at the Eel River for mitigation banks. And I don't know how far that's gone, but my understanding is that has not been in our discussions recently. But that's something that may be reactivated. But you're correct in terms of the mitigation. The community has to come together, and we have to have a very, very firm standard and a very specific goal. And until we do that, which we don't have that anymore, and you've heard me say this before, we need that collaborative plan where it's been adopted by the county. And with that, then we can do what you were talking about in terms of getting alterations as far as the mitigations and stuff we're looking at. But that is something, the Eel River Valley is something to look at. Any other final comment?
One thing I learned about mitigation that, again, I had no intent of learning, is the scary part about mitigation is when you mitigate someplace in the bay, like if you say, we're going to remove these piles, rake it out and plant seed for eelgrass, you can never use that section again. So you've got to be careful about where you choose to mitigate, because once you mitigate, you're done with that area.
Yeah.
And that's what's scary for me, because I'd love to see, well, there used to be a dock there, let's put one there now. Let's put a new one there. You know, I don't want to take away opportunity in the future when we do get a railroad and when we do have people that want to rebuild and move forward, that, oh, we can't use that area because we mitigated there to dredge for somewhere else.
I agree. My spiel is that until you claim what it is your vision is that we want, you've got that common agreement. We don't get diddly squat. Thank you, guys. Next month.